Why do crowds murder the truth teller? Why does the whistleblower lose their career while the lie becomes policy? Why does every platform, every institution, every gathering of human beings eventually organize itself around comfortable illusions instead of uncomfortable facts? You've seen it. You've felt it. The moment you spoke an unwelcome truth at work, at Thanksgiving dinner, in a comment section, and watched the walls go up, the eyes go cold. The moment you spoke an unwelcome truth at work, at Thanksgiving dinner, in a comment section, and watched the walls go up, the eyes go cold, the circle close against you. This isn't an accident. This isn't a glitch in human reasoning. This is a feature. 24 centuries ago, the citizens of Athens, the birthplace of democracy, the cradle of Western philosophy, voted to execute the wisest man among them. They forced Socrates to drink poison, not because he was wrong, but because he was right. And his student Plato spent the rest of his life trying to answer one question. Why do human beings, when forced to choose, pick the lie that preserves the group over the truth that threatens it? Today, we live inside systems that have weaponized that ancient choice. Algorithms that reward outrage over accuracy. Institutions that punish dissent and promote conformity. Media ecosystems where belonging is purchased with belief. Where your feed is a cave, and every notification chains you tighter to its walls. This is why philosophy matters, not as decoration, as immunity. Because the crowd is coming for you, it always does. The only question is whether you'll be ready. Let's begin where philosophy learned to fear the crowd. Athens, 399 BCE. Socrates stands trial. The charges? Corrupting the youth, impiety, refusing to recognize the gods of the state. The real crime? He asked questions no one wanted to answer. He wandered the agora, the marketplace, stopping citizens mid-stride, politicians, poets, craftsmen, the self-assured, and the self-important, and he asked them to define their terms. What is justice? What is virtue? What is courage? And when they couldn't answer, when their definitions collapsed under the weight of a single follow-up question, he didn't let them retreat into comfortable ambiguity. He held up a mirror. He showed them their ignorance. This is not how you build friends. This is how you build a death sentence. The Athenian jury, 501 citizens, ordinary men, a democratic cross-section, voted guilty. 280 to 221. Then they voted again on the penalty. Death. Socrates could have fled. His friends arranged it. He could have begged, recanted, promised silence. Instead, he drank the hemlock and spent his final hours discussing the immortality of the soul, calm as a man finishing an evening walk. Plato watched this. He was there, or near enough, and it broke something open in him. Here was the problem. Athens was not a tyranny. There was no king, no dictator forcing a show trial. This was democracy in action. The people, given the choice between a man who told them uncomfortable truths and a comfortable lie about their own wisdom, chose the lie. And they chose it together, enthusiastically, publicly, with the force of law. Plato spent the next 40 years building a philosophy on the rubble of that verdict. And at its center was this insight. The crowd does not seek truth. The crowd seeks validation. The crowd does not want wisdom. The crowd wants belonging. And when truth threatens belonging, belonging wins. Every time. This is not a bug in democracy. This is not a failure of education or information. This, Plato concluded, is the nature of collective human psychology, and if you don't understand it, you will be crushed by it. So let's diagnose the mechanism. Let's understand why groups predictably choose lies over truth. It begins with a simple fact about human psychology. You are not primarily a truth-seeking machine. You are a belonging-seeking machine. Your ancestors who prioritized accurate beliefs about the world, but alienated their tribe? They died alone in the wilderness. Your ancestors who held a few useful delusions, but maintained strong social bonds? They survived. They cooperated. They reproduced. You are their descendant. This is why groups don't ask, "Is this true?" as their first question. They ask, "Does believing this keep me inside the circle?" Truth is a secondary concern. Belonging is primary. Watch what happens when these two forces collide. A group forms around a shared belief, a political position, a corporate narrative, a religious doctrine, an identity claim. That belief becomes a marker. It separates insiders from outsiders. It signals loyalty. It answers the eternal human question, who is us and who is them? Now introduce a truth that contradicts the belief. The group doesn't evaluate the evidence neutrally. The group experiences the truth as a threat, not to their understanding of the world, but to their membership in the tribe. To accept the truth is to break the signal. To break the signal is to risk expulsion. And expulsion, for a social species, feels like death. So the group does what groups have always done. It shoots the messenger. It rewrites the narrative. It turns the truth teller into the threat. This is not conscious conspiracy. This is emergent incentive structure. The person who speaks the uncomfortable truth pays an immediate social cost: isolation, reputation damage, career consequences, the cold shoulder, the blocked contact, the terminated friendship. The person who repeats the comfortable lie receives an immediate social reward: approval, status, belonging, the nod of recognition, the retweet, the promotion. Repeat this pattern across millions of micro decisions, and you get a system where lies are structurally advantaged, where truth becomes high cost, high risk, where deception becomes low cost, high reward. Lies are communal. They bind the group together. They require coordination, shared performance, mutual reinforcement. Truth is isolating. It can be spoken alone. It doesn't need consensus to remain true. This is why whistleblowers are punished and conformists are promoted. This is why dissidents are marginalized and yes men rise. This is why every institution, over time, drifts toward the narratives that preserve the institution rather than the facts that threaten it. The crowd doesn't choose lies because it's stupid. The crowd chooses lies because lies are cheaper, safer, and more socially profitable than truth. And here's the acceleration mechanism. Once a critical mass of the group commits to the lie, the cost of truth-telling skyrockets. Now you're not just contradicting the belief. You're contradicting the people. You're calling them gullible, complicit, wrong. You're threatening their self-concept. So they double down. They don't re-examine the belief. They re-examine you. What's your motive? Who paid you? What tribe are you really loyal to? The lie becomes unfalsifiable because falsifying it would require the group to admit it was deceived. And groups do not apologize. Groups do not admit error. Groups expel the heretic and move on. This is the pattern Plato saw in Athens. This is the pattern that killed Socrates. And this is the pattern running underneath every collective delusion in human history. Plato encoded this insight into philosophy's most famous thought experiment. You know the story, but you may not know what it's really about. The Allegory of the Cave. Imagine prisoners chained in a cave since childhood, facing a wall. Behind them burns a fire. Between the fire and the prisoners, people carry objects, puppets, sculptures, props, casting shadows on the wall. The prisoners see only shadows. They hear only echoes. And because this is all they've ever known, they believe the shadows are reality. They give the shadows names. They study the patterns. They become experts in shadow prediction. They reward each other for correctly identifying shadows. They build careers, reputations, entire systems of knowledge around the shadow world. Now, one prisoner breaks free. He turns around, sees the fire, sees the objects, realizes the shadows are projections, illusions, second-hand representations of a reality he's never directly perceived. It hurts. The fire is bright. His eyes burn. He's confused, disoriented. Everything he thought he knew is collapsing. But he continues. He climbs. He reaches the mouth of the cave. He steps into sunlight. And for the first time in his life, he sees the actual world. Trees, sky, the sun itself, the source of all light, all truth, all genuine knowledge. He's overwhelmed, transformed. He understands now that everything below was a game of shadows, and he has seen something real. So he does what any awakened person would do. He goes back down into the cave to free the others. This is where the story turns. He descends. He finds his old companions still chained, still studying shadows, still debating shadow classifications with the confidence of tenured experts. And he tells them, "You're watching illusions. I've been outside. There's a whole world up there, real, solid, blazing with light. Come with me. Let me show you." How do they respond? They laugh at him. They mock him. His eyes, adjusted to sunlight, can't see well in the darkness anymore. He's clumsy. He stumbles. He can't even identify the shadows correctly. "Look at him," they say. "He went up there and came back ruined. He's worse than useless now. He can't even play the game anymore." And here's Plato's diagnosis. The line that echoes across 2,400 years. If they could get their hands on him, they would kill him. Not metaphorically, literally. The prisoners would execute the truth teller for threatening the only reality they know. This is not a story about ignorance. This is a story about incentives. The cave has an economy. The prisoners have built status hierarchies around shadow expertise. They have reputations, identities, social positions predicated on the shadow game being real and important. The returning prisoner threatens all of it. He's not offering them enlightenment. From their perspective, he's offering annihilation. He's saying, "Your expertise is worthless. Your accomplishments are illusions. Your entire framework for understanding reality is a children's game played in the dark." Who would accept that? Who would volunteer for that ego death? That status collapse, that humiliation. Easier to kill the messenger. Easier to reframe him as crazy, corrupted, dangerous. Easier to protect the cave and punish the prophet. This is Socrates. This is every whistleblower. This is every scientist who published data that contradicted the paradigm. This is every journalist who broke a story, the powerful wanted buried. This is every dissident who said the emperor has no clothes. The cave doesn't reward truth tellers. The cave executes them. And here's the terror of it. You are in the cave right now. We all are. We are all chained to walls we don't recognize, watching projections we mistake for reality, participating in systems that reward illusion and punish insight. The question is not whether you're in a cave. The question is whether you're willing to turn around. Now let's map the cave onto the world you actually live in. Because Plato's diagnosis wasn't just historical, it was predictive. Every system you interact with, every platform, every institution, every media ecosystem has optimized itself around the exact incentive structure that killed Socrates and keeps the prisoners chained. Start with the algorithm. Social media doesn't reward truth. Social media rewards engagement. And what drives engagement? Not accuracy, not nuance, not careful reasoning. Outrage drives engagement. Moral clarity drives engagement. Tribal signaling drives engagement. The algorithm learns this. It learns that the post saying, "Our side is righteous and their side is evil," gets shared. The post saying, "This is complicated and we might be partially wrong," gets scrolled past. So the algorithm shows you more outrage, more certainty, more content that confirms what you already believe, and vilifies those who disagree. You are not the customer. You are the prisoner. Your attention is the product, and the shadows on your wall are curated to keep you watching, clicking, staying in the cave. The truth teller who says, "Actually, both sides have a point here," or "The data contradicts our narrative," gets ratioed, dismissed, unfollowed. They pay the cost, immediately, publicly. The lie teller who says, "We're perfect and they're monsters," gets amplified, retweeted, elevated, monetized. This is not an accident of bad design. This is the optimization target. And engagement is driven by the same psychology that kept the prisoners chained. The need to belong is stronger than the need to know. Now politics. You think politicians lie because they're corrupt or stupid? No. Politicians lie because lying wins elections. A candidate who says, "This problem is complex, the solutions will be painful, we'll need to compromise, and some of you will be disappointed," loses to the candidate who says, "I have the perfect plan, it's easy, and only the bad people will suffer." The truth teller is punished at the ballot box. The lie teller is rewarded with power. Voters say they want honesty, but they vote for the comfortable fantasy. They say they want accountability, but they re-elect the person who blames the other tribe. This is the cave's economy at scale. The electorate is the prisoner audience. The politicians are the puppet masters. And the shadows they cast are called campaign promises, talking points, us versus them narratives that dissolve under scrutiny, but feel emotionally satisfying. Now, institutions, corporations, universities, legacy media. Every institution develops an internal logic, a set of beliefs that justify its existence and importance. These beliefs become sacred. They become identity. They become the condition of membership. An employee who points out that the company's strategy isn't working, that's not helpful feedback. That's disloyalty. That's not being a team player. A scholar who publishes research contradicting the department's ideological consensus, that's not brave inquiry. That's a threat to collegiality. That's a reason to deny tenure. A journalist who investigates their own organization's failures or biases, that's not integrity. That's betrayal. That's a career ender. Institutions don't ask, "Is this true?" Institutions ask, "Does this protect the institution?" And the mechanism is always the same. The truth teller is isolated, marginalized, investigated for ulterior motives. The conformist is promoted, platformed, invited into the inner circle. This is why institutional capture is inevitable. This is why every organization, over time, becomes more interested in defending its narrative than in pursuing its mission. The cave protects itself, and it protects itself by punishing anyone who reaches for the light. Now, legacy media. You've been told media is broken because of bias, because of corporate ownership, because of clickbait economics. All true. But the deeper problem is structural. Media companies don't make money by informing you. They make money by keeping you watching. And you keep watching when the story confirms your priors, when it makes you feel smart for already believing the right thing, when it gives you ammunition against the other tribe. A news story that says, "Your side was wrong about this," loses viewers. A news story that says, "Your side is heroic and the other side is evil," gains viewers. So guess which story gets produced? This is not a left problem or a right problem. This is a human problem. Every partisan outlet, every ideological bubble, every filter-optimized feed runs on the same fuel. Identity-affirming lies are more profitable than identity-threatening truths. The shadows are profitable. The sunlight is expensive. All these systems are networked now. The algorithm feeds the politician, feeds the institution, feeds the media, feeds the algorithm. They reinforce each other. They create a closed loop where truth can't get in and lies can't get out. You are born into the cave. You are educated in the cave. You are employed in the cave. You are entertained in the cave. And every system you touch is optimized to keep you there. Plato saw this coming. He saw that once you give crowds the power to choose their reality, they will choose the one that feels best, not the one that is best. And now we have built technological caves so sophisticated, so immersive, so responsive to our psychological triggers, that we don't even notice the chains anymore. We call them notifications. So what's the solution? Plato's answer is the one no one wants to hear. Elite epistemic stewardship. If the crowd will always choose belonging over truth, if democracy inevitably becomes a competition to tell the most comforting lies, then the crowd cannot be trusted with ultimate power. Instead, Plato argued, society should be governed by philosopher kings, individuals who have climbed out of the cave, who have seen the sun, who have spent decades training their minds to prefer truth over comfort, who have been educated beyond the reach of crowd psychology. Not elected leaders pandering for votes, not charismatic demagogues promising easy solutions, but rigorously trained thinkers who understand that governance is a craft, like medicine or navigation, requiring expertise, discipline, and immunity to popular delusion. This is the proposal that has made Plato controversial for 2,400 years. Because it's elitist. Unapologetically, structurally, Plato looked at Socrates' execution and concluded, the people cannot be trusted. They killed the wisest man among them. They will do it again. Therefore, the people should not rule. Instead, create a class of guardians. Educate them from childhood in mathematics, dialectic, philosophy, not to make them smart, but to make them immune to the emotional triggers that control crowds. Train them to endure the pain of being wrong. Teach them to value truth above status, above belonging, above comfort. And here's the mechanism. You cannot give someone philosophical immunity. through a TED Talk or a viral thread. You cannot shortcut the process. It requires years of rigorous training. It requires the kind of education that breaks down your ego, that forces you to confront your own ignorance, that makes you comfortable with uncertainty and willing to follow the argument wherever it leads, even if it leads away from your tribe. Plato's academy wasn't a university. It was a boot camp for epistemological resistance. The curriculum wasn't about memorizing facts. It was about building psychological resilience against the herd. It was about creating people who could stand alone, who could speak truth to crowds, who could govern based on principle rather than poll numbers. This is the vision. A society where power is held by those who have proven they can climb out of the cave, who have demonstrated they won't flinch when the crowd turns against them, who have been trained structurally, rigorously, mercilessly, to prefer uncomfortable truth over comfortable illusion. Now, the obvious objection: who watches the watchers? Who guards the guardians? If you concentrate epistemic authority in an elite class, what stops them from becoming corrupt, self-serving, tyrannical? What stops the philosopher kings from becoming just another cave, just another tribe protecting its own narratives? Plato's answer: the education itself is the safeguard. If you train people correctly, if you select for genuine philosophical temperament, if you remove them from material incentives and status games, they will police themselves. They will value truth above power. History's answer: this doesn't work. Every attempt to instantiate philosopher kings has collapsed into oligarchy, theocracy, or technocratic arrogance. The guardians become a new aristocracy. The cave just moves upward. But here's what Plato got right: the insight that survives the failure of his solution. Democracy without philosophical education is mob rule. It is the cave governing itself, and the cave always chooses shadows. You cannot have a functional democracy where the median voter is chained, where critical thinking is not taught, where the incentive structures reward lies and punish truth-tellers. You get what we have now: a system where algorithms replace the puppeteers, where partisan media replaces the fire, where voters watch shadows and call it news, where elections become competitions to tell the most emotionally satisfying lies, where truth is just another shadow, no more privileged than any other. So Plato's solution may be unworkable. The philosopher king may be a fantasy, but his diagnosis is surgical. If you want a society that doesn't kill its Socrateses, you need widespread philosophical immunity, not concentrated in an elite, but distributed across the population. You need citizens who can think critically, who can resist emotional manipulation, who can tolerate cognitive dissonance, who can hold beliefs provisionally, who can change their minds without experiencing it as ego death. You need a culture that charge rewards truth-telling instead of punishing it, that honors the whistleblower instead of destroying them, that treats "I was wrong" as a sign of strength instead of weakness. You need education that doesn't just transmit information, but builds resistance. Resistance to groupthink, to propaganda, to the seductive comfort of tribal belonging. This is the corrective, not rule by philosopher kings, but training in philosophical immunity for everyone. The cave can't be abolished, but you can teach people to recognize the chains. Which brings us to you watching this, you who made it this far, you who now understand the pattern. Here is the question you cannot avoid. Which cave are you in right now? What belief are you holding, not because the evidence supports it, but because abandoning it would cost you belonging? What narrative are you defending not because it's true, but because your tribe requires it? What comfortable illusion are you protecting because the uncomfortable truth would isolate you? You have one. Everyone does. The prisoner never sees their own chains. This is not a call to radical skepticism. This is not doubt everything and trust nothing. That's just another cave, just another way to avoid the work. This is a call to build immunity, to train yourself in the specific skills that let you climb out. First, learn to tolerate being wrong. This is the foundation. If being wrong feels like annihilation, you will never seek truth. You will only seek validation. Practice changing your mind. Publicly, out loud. In front of people whose respect you want, say the words, "I was wrong about this. Here's what changed my mind." Feel the fear. Feel the status threat. Feel the tribal alarm bells screaming danger. And do it anyway. This is the exercise that builds the muscle. Repeat it until being wrong feels less like death and more like data. Second, cultivate intellectual solitude. Truth-telling is isolating. Accept this. If you need constant social approval, you will never speak an unwelcome truth. Spend time alone with difficult ideas. Read arguments from people you disagree with, not to dunk on them, but to understand them. Find the strongest version of the opposing position and sit with it until you can articulate it better than its own advocates. This is not compromise. This is not both sides. This is training yourself to think independently of the herd. Third, audit your incentives. What are you rewarded for in your life? Conformity or dissent? Repeating approved narratives or asking uncomfortable questions? Being a team player or being right? If your career, your social circle, your platform rewards you for lying, even implicitly, even by punishing truth, you are in a cave, and you need to change the incentive structure or accept that you will stay chained. This might mean changing jobs, changing friends, changing platforms. It will definitely mean losing some comfort, some security, some belonging. This is the cost. It has always been the cost. Fourth, ask the Socratic question. When you encounter a belief, especially one you hold strongly, especially one your tribe requires, ask, how do I know this is true? Not, who said it? Not, does it feel right? Not, do people I respect believe it? How do I know this is true? What evidence would change my mind? If I can't name it, I'm not holding a belief. I'm performing a loyalty oath. Fifth, protect the truth tellers. You cannot do this alone. Philosophy is not a solo sport. You need others who value truth over belonging, who will call out your blind spots, who won't abandon you when you speak something unwelcome. Build that community. Find the other prisoners trying to climb. Defend them when the mob comes. Be the one person in the room who says, wait, let's actually hear them out. This is how the chain breaks, not through heroes, but through networks of people who have inoculated themselves against the crowd. You will lose friends over this. You will be called disloyal, contrarian, difficult. You will be accused of betraying the tribe. And here is the final test, the one Socrates faced, the one every truth-teller faces. When forced to choose between belonging and truth, which will you pick? The cave is comfortable. The chains are familiar. The shadows are populated with people you love, institutions you trust, beliefs that make you feel safe and righteous and part of something larger than yourself. And the climb is hard. The sunlight burns. You will stumble. You will be mocked. You might be alone for a while, but you will see something real. And once you've seen it, you cannot unsee it. Once you've tasted truth, the shadows taste like ash. This is philosophical immunity. This is what Plato was training for. This is what we need now, distributed across millions of people, instead of concentrated in a guardian class. The cave is counting on you to stay chained. The algorithm is counting on you to keep scrolling. The tribe is counting on you to keep signaling loyalty. Will you? Socrates died for this, not for a political movement, not for a religion, not for a nation. He died because he believed that an unexamined life is not worth living. He died because he refused to let the crowd determine what was true. He died because he chose the sun over the shadows, even when the shadows voted for his execution. 24 centuries later, the pattern persists. The mechanisms have changed. We have algorithms now instead of juries, feeds instead of agoras, platforms instead of cave walls. But the underlying psychology is identical. Crowds still choose belonging over truth. Lies are still communal. Truth is still isolating. And the truth teller is still punished. But here's what's different now. You know the pattern. You've seen the cave. You understand the incentives. You cannot claim ignorance anymore. The question is not whether you'll encounter groups that prefer comfortable lies. You will, every day, in every domain. The question is whether you'll have built the immunity to resist them. Whether you'll be the one who turns around when everyone else is staring at shadows. Whether you'll be the one who climbs when everyone else is comfortable in chains. Whether you'll be the one who comes back down to speak the unwelcome truth, knowing full well what the cave does to prophets. This is not optional, not anymore, because the caves are getting smarter. The shadows are getting more convincing. The algorithms are learning your triggers. The institutions are perfecting the art of punishing dissent while celebrating the illusion of free speech. And if you don't train yourself now, if you don't build philosophical immunity now, you will be captured. You will be chained. You will spend your life as an expert in shadow identification, never once suspecting there's a sun. So here's what I want you to do. Leave a comment. Tell me about a time you chose truth over belonging, a time you spoke an unwelcome fact and paid the social cost, a time you changed your mind publicly, a time you defended someone the crowd was attacking, or tell me about a cave you're in right now, a belief you're holding for tribal reasons, a lie you're protecting because the truth would cost too much. This is not about confession. This is about building a community of people who are practicing immunity together, who are training each other to climb. Subscribe, turn on notifications, because we're going deeper. We're analyzing more systems. We're learning more techniques. We're building the philosophical resistance that this moment demands. And share this, not with everyone, with someone specific, someone you know who's intellectually courageous, someone who's already asking the uncomfortable questions, someone who's ready to see the chains. Send it to them with a message. This is us. Let's climb. The cave wants you isolated. The cave wants you to think you're the only one who sees the shadows for what they are. You're not. There are others. We are building something here. A distributed network of truth tellers, whistleblowers, question askers, mind changers, People who have decided that reality matters more than comfort, that integrity matters more than belonging, that the sun matters more than the shadows. Plato couldn't save Athens. Socrates couldn't save himself. But you can save you, one choice at a time, one uncomfortable truth at a time, one climb at a time. The cave is waiting. Will you leave it?